Guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for stopping by, taking your time. You are awesome and you know it. Everyone who's new, my name is Alexei from We Love Samples. Welcome on board. Yeah, I just wanted to try something new today. I believe we have an interesting topic. It's an old topic, but I think that I have never done it this way how I did it. We will compare plugins. We will compare plugins that you buy, that you can buy, plugins that you already have inside your DAW, because the comparison is pretty interesting. How your kind of an expensive, plugins transform your sounds, your audio files, and how your DAWs, the stock plugins, compare to them. And is there a difference between them? What sounds better? What sounds, different? To summarize already this video, it's not about, hey, go out and buy stuff, or forget actually not to buy stuff, or forget to buy, or what, all those possible things. I think that it's still important to just go out there, try new things, try something out, try to as well use stuff that you already have, not like looking at some deals only because the plugin have a 95% discount. It doesn't make any sense to buy those plugins all the time, because at some point you have like 1,000 plugins, and at the end you spend 1 hour mixing and 1 hour 1,000 hours looking for deals, and this is not what will make you better as a producer, engineer, etc., etc. So this idea is pretty old, because people, engineers, producers, we all at some point wanted to like figure out what is actually better. Is it going outside the box and use analog outboard gear, going to the summing boxes using external compressors, EQs, etc., 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 or is it better to stay inside the DW, inside the box? Some engineers today only digital. Some engineers still try to make this hybrid kind of mixing or mastering process, which is fine. And I believe, for me personally, there is no right or wrong. It still depends on, this is the most important thing actually, how your music sounds like after you put a tool inside your channel. So insert your compressor that you might like better for a signal, or you already know how this EQ might sound on a specific case. This is actually what you have to find out with time, and you can only find it out when you start to mix more, when you start to produce more, when you start just to spend a little bit more time inside the DW. What we are going to do is, I have programmed a drum loop, and I will play you the signal without any processing, okay? And then I will have a processing using stock plugins and using analog simulations, or like expensive plugins. Expensive means here, it doesn't mean that they have to cost more than a DW. I just mean that we had to go out and buy them. The point here is, do they actually make a difference with the sound when we really put out our wallet and buy them, or is it enough to use the stock plugins? This is the video that today I want to describe it with this video, so to have a great comparison. And what I did exactly, I will use just an EQ and a compressor, super simple. And the settings between the plugins that I bought and plugins that are already inside the DAW, the stock plugins, they do have the same settings. So they are super precise. I have never done it before actually. And this idea came up when I started to set up my new service mixing site, because I had to think about, what about clients who would like to have this analog type simulation, maybe going out of the box for whatever reason. There are still those people out there, which is fine. But this is like where this idea came up. So I think you're ready. I'm ready too. And let's begin. Good. So the blue one is the no processing. Okay, so this is dry. Let's hear it. Okay, you got it. A, of course, I will not tell you what it is either the stock plugins or the simulations. So first the EQ, then the compression, and the B version the same. EQ, compression, and you have no idea either it's stock or simulation. Try to find it out. It's pretty interesting actually because the sound will change slightly. For me, even more actually when I set it up and really went A, B all the time, try to compare what happens with the with the dynamics, what happens with the EQ actually, with the phase, with stereo image. There are many things, and I will actually have a small list at the end of the video to to say what I think, what I heard when I compared those versions. Okay, so I will play once again the dry signal, right? And then I will play drums A, so the first version of the processing, and then the second. Let's go. Can you already hear any difference? This is the question. I know it might be hard because of YouTube and the compression YouTube gives us. Nevertheless, I think it will be heard. Let's do once again the following: A and B, A and B. And then I will show you what plugins I have used and what I did actually with the plugins, so we understand what's actually going behind the scenes, and what I think what actually happened to the sound. Okay, good. Okay, what do you think? Is a analog or the stock? So analog, I mean by the stuff that I bought, right? And is B the stock plugins? Are those stock plugins, or is it the other way around? What do you think? Write it in the comments down below. I know it's maybe weird, but I think this is what it makes really interesting, what you and other people will think before I say what it actually is. Okay, so example number A are the extra plugins that I bought. And I will show you the plugin that I bought and the plugin that I have used on the B channel, because the B channel is obviously the stock plugin. Okay, so first I used a filter on the BX console N by Brainworks. I already told some things about this plugin on the video that I will link here about plugins, what plugins I use the most, etc. You can watch it here. So the filter is always on. on this plugin. So when you switch it on, it's always on. We have a high cut at 18 kilohertz, and we have a low cut at 31.5. The manual doesn't show us or doesn't say anything about the slope, so how many dB per octave is actually the filter. I found out that the VXS console, because this is the simulation of the Neve VXS, it's 12 dB per octave. So what I had to do is, of course, I had to go to our Pro EQ in Studio One. I use Studio One as the DAW, and I did the same. So I choose 12 dB per octave, the filter slope, and set it to 31.5 hertz. And the same with 18 kilohertz with a high cut. Okay, so already here it's important, because otherwise we can't compare the plugins. And then the second thing that I did is I switched off completely the dynamic section, because this Neve simulation is obviously a channel strip. So I had to turn off the total harmonic distortion, the channel gain, etc. So the dynamic section, so it doesn't actually do anything to the sound, and only using the EQ. Okay, so the EQ is on, as you see, the light bump is switched on. We have a small, first here, I lost myself a little bit. So here, at 110 hertz, we have a little, we have point, it should be 2, because I touched it. So we have 2 dB shelf, right? A little bit going a little bit up with the gain, so giving a little bit more the bass sound, featuring a little bit more the kick. And then we have at around 200 hertz, we have a little cut at 3 dB, and the Q, this is important as well, is set at 2.0, so exactly at 2. This is the same what we did with the Pro EQ. And then we have, as you see at the Pro EQ, we have at 5 kilohertz. Over here we have 3.5 dB in gains, so a little bit more featuring the snare and the claps, a little bit of the hi-hat sounds, etc. It's really broad in Q. It's set at 1. And the same we did here as well. So here's 5 kilohertz, 3.5 dB, and Q is 1. So this is exact the same setting on the Neve EQ and the same setting on the Pro EQ. Okay, and now we open the compressors. And the first compressor, of course, one of that I really like to use the most on drums and actually the bass as well. It's the Vertigo VSC2. In the video I told about some words about that as well. And as the comparison, in the stock version, just the compressor from PreSonus, so from Studio One. What is important here is the sidechain filter is set at 60 hertz. It means that the compressor is only acting when the frequencies above 60 hertz are actually going beyond the threshold. So when the threshold is reached by every, so by frequencies that are above 60 hertz, the compressor starts to act. The attack is at 10 milliseconds. We have it here as well. The release is set at 0.1, so 100 milliseconds. We have it here as well. Makeup gain is important. I did nothing to it. Otherwise, we would think that because we turned a little bit the makeup gain, it means that the sound becomes louder, and we think automatically it's better. This is what I, of course, didn't want to do. Although I have to admit that at the here at the compressor at the normal Studio One, I did it actually for whatever reason for a second because I wasn't like thinking about it, and then at some point I really liked the stock chain better in sound, and then I as well checked the settings, and then I realized, hey, it's louder. And this is what most people do wrong when mixing or mastering. You have always to compare the same volume. So if you do some settings and you try to compare the bypassed version and uh, the the plugin itself, what the plugin is doing to the sound, always make sure that the volume, right, the loudness of the signal stays almost the same. Otherwise, you will think that because it's louder, it's better. Okay, so the ratio is set at here is maybe a little bit like washy. However, I would say that because I choose the ratio to soft or put it at soft, it means that we have to use because of the sound. I like to use the soft feature here. Gives a little bit more character to the sound. It's not really hard squeezing the dynamics, and this is what we had to do as well with the knee here. So to place it at 6 dB, you can do it with 8 dB or 10 dB. So yeah, it's basically the middle of what this compressor at Studio One is actually doing, and the ratio, it can be 1.5, 1.2, so definitely below 2 because 2 is obviously here. So I think it was a fair comparison. The thresholds are the same. This is not always actually possible. I checked with the fat channel compressor, and the threshold there was minus 26 or 8, and it means that the input actually of the compressor is set at a different volume. So yeah, with this plugin, there was the same match. And this the same here, low cut, everything is filtered below 60 hertz. Again, the compressor is only listening to sounds and reacting to sounds that are above 60 hertz, meaning that the bass or the kick drum, in this case the kick drum, has a little bit more punch and can breathe without sacrificing the dynamics in the low end. Good. Now let's play again, once again, 2 times, and then I will tell what I think, what I hear in the sounds, and yeah, the conclusion for this video. Okay, good. So I have something written down already before, of course, and I believe that the analog simulation or the plugins that we buy extra, at least in this case with the Neve channel and the Vertigo compressor, I think compared to the stock, okay, the bass is more under control. This is what I hear. A little bit more clean and sounding a little bit more compact as well. Sounds smoother, definitely for me, for my ears, and feels a little bit more focused. This is what I mean by when you compare the stereo image. So when I changed it, the one version to the other, I feel like the stereo image, although the vectorscope doesn't show any significant changes, but I hear that the central picture, so the kind of the mono picture of the mix of the sounds of the stereo image, is a little bit more focused inside the center, not too like going right and left all the time, because this is actually the case what I hear with the stock plugins. Okay, and the stock plugins for me sounds more forward moving. I mean by that is actually that the sounds, because they're a little bit not under control as the analog simulation, they sound a little bit more aggressive due to the energy that they are giving. Sounds, I said it before, sounds a little bit more boomy. So again, we SWIP because the analog is a little bit more controlled, the low end, and the stock plugins for my ears, they sound a little bit more, boomy, so a little bit more low end. Although, as you see, the EQ has completely the same settings. It could be the reason that the sidechain filter of the compressor, even though it's set at 60 hertz, is, we don't know what the filter slope is. Okay, so if the one is actually at 24 and the other at 6, of course it's a big difference, and this is what we would hear. So meaning that if the slope is less, right? So like let's say 6, we stick at 6. It will sound more boomy because not a lot of frequencies are cut. And I feel like that the stereo image feels a little bit more, chaotic compared to the analog simulation. Now here comes the important part. It doesn't mean that now everybody has to go out and start to look for amazing deals and look for those plugins, etc., etc. I think personally that the times are definitely over to say that one plugin is better than the other. Of course, we have to compare, and we have to compare not only one scenario, we have to compare different signals and different cases. So it can be that the stock plugins would win, for example, on a vocal, okay? Or for example, on a guitar, because they're sounding a little bit more aggressive, with more energy, where you want to have the, the aggression. So when doing this comparison, for me, the analog, of course, won because the sound is a little bit more smooth. And to understand, I'm not saying only because I saw that I put the analog. I really did the blind test. So I switched all the time until I lost actually the the signals, where I didn't know what I actually compare. And then I had this, okay, this sounds for me, for my ears, a little bit better, more compact, more central sound. And this is a little bit different, sounds a little bit out and a little bit more chaotic. As well, a little bit more dynamics because it's not compressing as much, although the compressor is actually set at the same settings. And this is what actually makes you better as the engineer or the producer when you start to compare and hear this slight changes, because this changes, as I said before, for some people, maybe you don't hear anything, of course, maybe because of the YouTube sound, but you can do it as well. You can just copy similar scenarios, check out your simulations, your plugins that you actually bought, comparing to your stock plugins that you have inside your DAW, and check out what you actually like the most. Because sometimes, for me personally, sometimes I still use stock plugins. This is not like this video to say, hey, stock plugins, please. No, never, right? Never ever. No, it says that we have to find out cases and understand where those stock plugins actually can benefit the signal and where they might not fit as well as the analog simulations, the plugins that we have to buy. So guys, go out there and try it out yourself. And if you have anything that you would like to add, leave a comment in the section below and give me a like if you like this video, if you like this format. Let me definitely know. And if you want to see me and the channel again, you can subscribe. You can download my music production ebook that I wrote last year, actually, but for whatever reason, I only started to give it people to this year, and you can join my private Facebook group as well when you download this music production guide. It's the first link in the description, and yeah, it's for people like you if you're interested in music production and mixing, audio, etc. Thank you for taking your time. I will see you in the next video, guys. Have a beautiful week. Peace.
Swag on over, little boy. Swag on over, little boy. Swag on over, little boy. Swag on over, little boy.